So the first video I got is this one already. So we're gonna watch. So if you guys didn't know, there was recently a government shutdown. It lasted for about like maybe 42, 43 days kind of thing. And then, yep, no more shutdown. So I never seen this and, this is curious, so I want to watch it kind of thing. So let's go ahead.
And he's got a huge problem.
What?
He's the head honcho.
Hold on.
This is Uncle Don. And he's got a huge problem. He's the head honcho of the world's largest jungle. But the jungle's economy is about to shut down. Why? Bananas. See, the US jungle government operates on a budget, and every year this budget renews, accounting for things like changes in spending and shifting national priorities. Some years, the military gets a boost. Other years, healthcare gets cut, and so on. It's just like our parents giving out allowances when we were monkey cubs. The jungle government is getting a pile of bananas from Congress to spend on doing things that governments do. But it's this very pile of bananas that's giving Uncle Don a massive nightmare. And now, it's becoming everyone's problem. See, Jungle Congress can't seem to agree on the budget, with both red and blue teams refusing to give any ground to either side. However, the government budget needs approval of both teams. In other words, bipartisan support to keep the jungle running. But while this bickering happens at the top levels of the jungle, the average monkeys are the ones paying the price. Because a government shutdown means things like national parks, airports, and hospitals, which employ federal workers, would have no bananas to pay those same workers. And with a compromise nowhere in sight, Uncle Don has put out a warning to federal agencies, informing them to brace for mass layoffs, signaling that the worst has yet to come.
Johnson, why are you naked? Because my t-shirt sucks. Look at Gibson.
Wait, what? Is that an ad? All right.
So what happens when the bananas run out? Why can't red and blue teams see eye to eye? And what does this mean for regular monkeys like us? This is the US government shutdown explained. So remember how our parents would give us allowances when we were monkey cubs? What if mom wants to give us 10 bananas per day while dad wants to give us 15? But instead of meeting in the middle, they argue late into the night. Eventually,
My bad, y'all. I'm just saying I'm live right now on like my Instagram story, so yeah, my bad. But yeah, I'm listening.
Getting to give us our allowances for the next day. Dad and mom are focused on proving a point, while we go to school empty-handed. This is what's happening, except at the highest levels of the jungle government. But instead, when the jungle's leaders can't agree on how to split up the bananas, we're not talking about 10 or 15 bananas. We're talking about bananas in the billions. And because Jungle Congress can't seem to agree on a budget or even a temporary spending plan, the government isn't allowed to use bananas for daily activities. In other words, the banana supply to many federal branches of the government just stops. Suddenly, the monkeys who keep the jungle's playgrounds clean, run the clinics, and patrol our parks don't get paid. Because no one's getting paid, the jungle's national parks close their gates. The clinic's federal health offices shut their doors.
Let me do some commentary. That sucks, Not getting paid.
The government offices are shuttered except for the most essential services. Even the monkeys who keep the jungle safe, like border guards and air traffic controllers, might have to work without getting any bananas until the fight between red and blue teams comes to an end. For the monkeys who rely on those bananas to feed their families, pay their rent, or just get by, a shutdown isn't just a political squabble, it's a very real crisis. But while regular monkeys' livelihoods are on the line, rich Congress monkeys seem more focused on winning the argument with the other team. See, if this isn't solved soon, scores of regular monkeys employed by the government will have no choice but to find new jobs to support themselves and their families. A terrifying reality considering the abysmal job market. But that's not all. When an agreement is finally reached, what happens to the jungle if so many experienced monkeys have already left? How will the government deal with the brain drain of losing so much talent and know-how? But to Uncle Don and the rest of his colleagues in Congress, this is a price both sides are willing to pay to make sure their version of the government budget gets passed. Refusing to give any ground to
let me. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry, y'all. We'll go back here. My bad if y'all were paying attention, but I wasn't. But I did hear something about like Don the monkey.
See, if this isn't solved soon, scores of regular monkeys employed by the government will have no choice but to find new jobs to support themselves and their families. A terrifying reality considering the abysmal job market. But that's not all. When an agreement is finally reached, what happens to the jungle if so many experienced monkeys have already left? How will the government deal with the brain drain of losing so much talent and know-how? But to Uncle Don and the rest of his colleagues in Congress, this is a price both sides are willing to pay to make sure their version of the government budget gets passed, refusing to give any ground to their sworn political opponents. And now, the whole jungle is paying the price. But how did we get here? And more importantly, why can't the red and blue teams see eye to eye? See, historically, both red and blue teams don't exactly get along with each other. But this year, the standoff is especially fierce. The red team, led by Uncle Don, wants to keep cutting the size of the jungle government, slashing spending, and reducing welfare expenses. The blue team is pushing back, fighting to protect affordable health care, extend tax credits for insurance, and reverse cuts to programs like Medicaid and the jungle's health research centers. But you might be thinking, doesn't the red team control both houses of Congress? That's right, but they don't have the sheer number of votes needed to pass their plan on their own in the upper house. They need some members of the blue team to vote in their favor as well. Because of this, the blue team has just enough power to block the red team's budget, using their leverage to demand changes which Uncle Don and the red team isn't too happy with. Both sides have been bickering about this for months with no compromise in sight, and even when the deadline loomed, both teams refused to give any ground. Uncle Don and the red team seem to believe that this shutdown will be blamed on the blue team, the seemingly stubborn minority blocking the salaries for hundreds of thousands of workers. But in the other camp, the blue team believes their fight against Uncle Don and the Reds to protect healthcare and welfare benefits will paint them as the valiant resistance. While the leaders argue, regular monkeys are left suffering the consequences of this deadlock, leading to the shutdown that happened on the 1st of October 2025. The first in almost 7 years. But this time, things look far worse for the average monkey. Because unlike past shutdowns, Uncle Don has signaled, through a memo sent to all federal branches, that this isn't just about waiting out a standoff. He's warned agencies to brace for mass layoffs, making it clear that this shutdown could be used to identify and permanently cut so-called non-essential workers. In previous shutdowns, most federal workers who were furloughed, in other words, sent home without pay, were eventually called back and paid retroactively once the government reopened. The pain was real, but it was temporary at least. This time, the threat is different. Uncle Don and his team are openly considering using the shutdown as a tool to shrink the government for good. For months, Uncle Don and his team has already been slashing budgets and reducing the federal workforce. Now, with the shutdown in full effect, there's talk of accelerating those cuts by permanently laying off workers deemed non-essential, rather than simply furlough.
Okay. So, what I'm getting from this is the shutdown that happened recently is just a way for the red team to fire some people, aka the non-essential workers. All right, let's continue. I was muted.
Rather than simply furloughing them, continuing the pattern of mass federal layoffs throughout this year. This approach is unprecedented. See, in the past, even short shutdowns were seen as risky political gambits, with both parties eager to restore normalcy as soon as possible. But now, the White House appears willing, hell, even eager, to let the shutdown drag on, using it as leverage to allegedly trim the fat. The impact would be massive. Many estimate that up to 40% of federal workers, close to 1 million monkeys, could be put on unpaid leave, with many at risk of losing their jobs for good. Many of those affected work in border protection, air traffic control, and law enforcement, what most would argue falls under essential services. And as such, these will keep running, but with skeleton crews and no pay. But it doesn't end there. National parks, health offices, and countless other services will close their doors, leaving millions of monkeys without support. This year, the stakes aren't only about missed paychecks or closed parks. For many,
This is I just want to note this scene right here. I know this is just random, but this is from that one movie. If you guys know what I'm talking about, Blade Runner. Yeah, 2049, I think. Yeah.
without support. This year, the stakes aren't only about missed paychecks or closed parks. For many, it's about whether their livelihoods will exist at all when the dust finally settles, and no one knows if the government will look the same. So what now? The bottom line is this. While the red and blue teams bicker in the treetops, it's the regular monkeys, the ones who care for the sick, manage our flights and keep the jungle running, who are left dealing with the consequences. For the rich and powerful, the shutdown is just another round in their endless game of one-upmanship. They argue over piles of bananas, trade blame on the nightly news, and plan their next political move from the comfort of their luxurious gated communities. But for the middle and working class monkeys, this isn't a game. Every missed paycheck could mean no food on the table, or sleepless nights wondering how to pay rent and make ends meet. It's families forced to choose between groceries and medicine, workers lining up at food banks, and dreams put on hold while the powerful squabble overhead. The truth is, most monkeys just want to be able to live their lives. They just want to do their jobs, care for their families, and live with a little dignity. But in this shutdown, they've become pawns, casualties in a game they never asked to play. And while the rich and powerful plan their next gambit for power, remember who's really paying the price. And beyond the loss of livelihoods, who knows what losing so much workforce would do to the jungle government? Will our national parks receive the love and care they deserve? Will our transport infrastructure change for the worse? How will healthcare providers deal with the double whammy of both losing massive funding and monkey power?
So he's using the Plants vs. Zombies like soundtrack theme behind this, which is pretty cool.
No one knows for sure, and only time will tell how things play out. But hopefully, a compromise is reached sooner rather than later. Protests are already taking place throughout the jungle to raise awareness about the impacts of the government's shutdown, placing pressure on Uncle Don, red and blue teams to come to the negotiation table and finally come to an agreement. So, the next time you see news about the US government shutting down, you'll know what's happening behind the scenes and the real impact it has on average monkeys like you and me. If any monkeys are confused, just remember that this is just a simple explainer on the US government shutdown and is not a hit piece or endorsement of any kind. Please do not sue Monkey, and thank you for watching.
Okay. Yes, the shutdown sucks because there's no money flowing. Social workers, military, etc. are not getting paid. Looks like, yeah, how I see it is like they're filtering kind of thing. Letting people go, layoffs and things like that. So, a government shutdown, how I see it, is almost like a mass layoff, because I think in the video somewhere it said like almost 40% right here of federal workers, bada bing, and that is close to 1 million federal workers. But yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in to the U.S. shutdown explained using bananas by Monkey Explains. A shout out Monkey Explains for with this video. I'll subscribe. Maybe we'll watch some more in the future. But yep, shout out to Monkey Explains. All right.